Welcome back to ThisBytesForYou. In my last video, you saw me build up this beautiful system inside of the Corsair 7000D case. Beautiful. Its name, chosen by you, is Sinatra. I think it's a beautiful build. Now the only thing left is the wiring. So I always do a separate video because both processes take a while. The complete build and then the complete wiring portion. The wiring portion, I connect everything, make sure everything is good. And then after that, I make it look nice and pretty. And I walk you through every single step of the way. So let's get started. The very first thing we're going to worry about is the power supply down here. So for that, we're going to bring you around the back, and I'm going to go ahead and remove this side panel and this one as well. Corsair did an awesome job with this case, making everything nice and easy to get to. And actually, before we get to that power supply, let's go ahead and put all these front panel and USB, all these cables, let's connect it to the motherboard real quick. So first off, I know there's going to be a USB 3 right down here. So I'm going to go ahead and slide it under, but I want to make sure, I want to make it look nice and neat. Now there's going to be another SATA over here, I believe. SATA is going to be right over here. I'm going to go ahead and remove that video card real quick. Okay, so we're going to bring the USB 3 right along here. Right along here. Now, one thing is, because we're going to put fans right over here, we're going to want to remove this plate as well. This plate is kind of nice for wiring purposes to keep everything nice and neat. But since we're going to put fans on there, we don't need it. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that. So I just took out this plate, and then I'll take this plate out. Now this plate is going to be a little more difficult because you may not be able to see it, but some of these fan cables are intertwined into it. So I'm going to have to disconnect stuff and work it through. Now that we've sorted out that cabling mess, I was able to get rid of the plate that was over here. Now, in order for us to put some fans on this panel, we're actually going to have to remove the panel. We don't 100% need to, but it just makes it that much easier to actually put the fans on there. So easy way is just remove these 5 screws. Okay, so now since we know the panel goes up like this, we're going to go ahead and put these GIM fans right along here. This is going to be blowing into the case. Just putting all the fans, lining them up all the same way so that it looks a little bit nicer. GIM did a nice job with the outer shell that you can change colors on it, which is pretty cool. We're going to go ahead and feed these through here. That way they look nicer when we put them inside of the case and we seal it up. Cable management is a bit of a bonus. And now we're going to be using the case fan screws . Now with these fans connected, we can see right up here all the cables come out, and then we'll go ahead, just put everything back in here. Looks like I'll need to get another one of those fans down here since we can fit 4 120mm fans here. And now since the GIM has its own separate controller, we'll just go ahead and add that right up here. And all of the cables are long enough to come through and reach, for example, right into here. And since I will be getting another one of these fans at some point to fill in the fourth, we are able to put more up here than just these three. Okay, and then now we'll go ahead and connect this PWM fan to this PWM header, and that'll control those fans. Now that we have all the fans situated, now we need to connect all these cables down here. Now there's going to be a USB 3.0 header right over here on the board on this side. This is the front side of the case. Then over here on the first opening down here, there we'll find the USB-C header. We'll also find an ARGB header. This is for the GIM fans, connected right down here. I'm just putting everything in its place, and then we'll go ahead and connect it. So then right over here at the very end, we'll find HD audio. And then on the second one over here, we'll find USB 3. And then a little bit more confusing because it's not labeled like they usually are. The front panel headers, the power switch, reset switch, and the power LED. Going to go ahead and slide them all in here, and then we'll take care of that one last. First off, the ARGB connection. We'll just go ahead, see those 3 pins there. They're going to line up with the 3 pins right over here. So we'll just go ahead and plug that in. Funny how it's only 3 pins, yet they're the most difficult ones to plug in sometimes. And it's not because you can't see them or it doesn't make sense, but it's so difficult for some reason. All right, and just putting the front panel ones aside. Now I'm connecting the USB Type-C to the USB Type-C header right down here. And then we're plugging in the USB Type 3 header over here. And then last but not least, until we get to the front panel, is the HD audio. Okay, and just feed the excess. So now the other one is the front panel header. Now on most motherboards, it is clearly labeled through maybe silk screening or some other process, but on MSI boards, it seems to be a little bit more difficult. So you definitely need the manual for that. I'll have it up on the screen so you can see what it looks like for reference. So first off, we'll connect the power switch. We'll go ahead and connect it right here. Now I know it's incredibly hard to see. I made a video on how to connect all of these panels. You might want to check that out if this is a part you're stuck on, and that should definitely help you out. Reset switch. It is just incredibly difficult to get it when you're inside of a case. And then we have power LED. So minus is on the top. So we'll grab this guy here, and positive is on the bottom. And then we'll swipe the excess cables down here. So we might need a few little zip ties and everything to make that look nice. But for right now, we're just making everything work. So then over here, actually looks like we're gonna have to drop that USB 3 connection just by one hole. Flip it over. I just realized I have the fans reversed. I want air to come in, not air to go out. 1 sec while I reverse that. All right, so I got that taken care of. I just had to take the fans out, flip them, screw them back in, and then put this back in. Now, next we need to connect this fan header from this controller here into the motherboard. You definitely don't want to plug it back into itself. It'll kind of make it useless. So we'll just slide that back here, and hopefully we won't need to re-slide that. Perfect. So we'll go from up here to back here. So just connecting that over here. Right up here, we have air blowing in. Because there will be a side panel, it's gonna go this way. And then we have air sucking out through back here, and then sucking out through the liquid cooling unit on the top. All right, so we're done with that basic cabling. But then, of course, now we have the power supply we need to put in here. So here is the power supply. Again, the EVGA Supernova 1000G. We have a ton of connections. Now we just need to connect it. Let me grab all the cables that we're going to need and I'll be right back. Along here on the power supply, we'll find all the connections. So first off, ATX 24 pin, which we're actually going to be using an extender on this, but we still have to connect this piece. This is a fully modular supply, so we're going to be connecting the parts we need. Since I do a lot of reviewing, I'm going to connect a few extras as well. So then the next one we're going to need is the CPU power, EPS. I'll put it this way, a little bit easier to read. I'll put that under CPU 2, since we are going to utilize CPU 1 as well. This motherboard has two 8 pins. Mind you, you don't need to use both, but I'm going to since they're there. Or if it had an 8 pin and a 4 pin, you don't need to use the 4 pin. You can just use the 8 pin. The 4 pin or the additional 8 pin would be for overclocking purposes. And then we have VGA. Gonna connect them in order. So 1. This is a 6 plus 8. All of these connections come with the power supply. You'll find it in the description below. And then another 6 plus 2 will go under VGA 2. Then we'll have another VGA, which will go under VGA 3. Now there is a possibility that I'll get a video card that requires 4. Chances are pretty slim, so I'm gonna go ahead and leave 3. I can always add another one later on. And then we're going to add Molex power. These guys over here, in case you don't know what they are. They're not really used much anymore, but we'll put that under perif 1. And then we'll add a single SATA power under SATA 1. Again, we can always add more later if we want to, but the reason we add them now, because when we put them inside the machine, it becomes a lot more difficult. So now we're gonna go ahead and put the power supply right inside of the unit. You'll notice we have 1, 2, 3, 4 pads to keep the noise down in the power supply. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and grab that power supply. We're gonna grab all the cables right over here and just slide it in. Might take a little bit, but you just need to adjust it. The fan is going to be on the bottom since there is the holes for the fans down here. This is going to suck in air from the bottom of the case because there's a filter. It'll stay clean. And I'm just gonna shove all these in there for right now since I will be turning this. Okay, and then we need to match all the holes here, 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 here. There's sometimes going to be one here or sometimes here. Actually, in this power supply, there's holes everywhere. So, one sec. So there's holes for 8 screws. I'm just gonna go ahead and use 4. 4 of the most common ones, which will be the complete edges. And as I usually do, I put 1 and then 1 horizontal to that, just so that everything fits in properly. And then I start screwing in the rest completely. All right, so now that we have the power supply in, we're gonna start laying the groundwork for all the cabling. Just put everything where it belongs and then we'll make it look pretty afterwards. So we're going to start off with the ATX 24 pin. This one right over here. This connects to your motherboard. Now, this one is going to be a little bit different because we have the extension cable. But normally the way it would go is push it through here, rest all the cables over here. Coming out right over here, we have the liquid cooling tubes kind of getting in the way. But normally the way you would do it is just pull that cable and just pop it in there. But what we're going to do with that extension cable is I'm going to connect the 24 pin to the extension cable so that you see how it goes. That's connected. Now, it doesn't have to be like this in your machine. I'm just building with this on this particular machine. But let's go ahead and just slide it through. And I don't need the entire thing through since it's an extension. And then I'll just bring it in over here. Again, making all these cables work together. And then I'll just connect it right over here. And that one seemed to have clipped in pretty well. So I kind of didn't have a choice with those cables, but that's okay. Let me clean up the grommet. So now that we have that ATX 24 pin connected, we're going to go ahead and connect this power connection right over here. And so it brings this cable as well as this cable. This cable brings the controller and connects into power. But since we're not going to need that, we're just going to need the cable because the board already has RGB. We're going to come around the back. And to keep everything hidden, I'm going to feed this 3-pin cable right through this grommet. And now I'm going to slide it behind the ATX 24 pin and then connect this cable to that. So now the ATX 24 pin extension cable with the RGB is connected through power. I'm also bringing down this cable, the fan header, behind here. Since it's going to be lit, that'll take some of the eyes away from that. Okay, so perfectly hidden. So now we have the pump, the fan header, the ATX 24 pin cable, USB 3.0, front panel, the power button, reset, LED activity. Then we have an RGB connection. We have USB Type-C, USB Type-B, or USB 3.0 I should say. Front panel audio. Okay, now that that's connected, coming around the back, we'll have the other power connection for the ATX 24 pin. We'll connect that right over here. And now there's the ARGB side. Now we already have one coming down here, one ARGB connection right here. The other one on this board comes on the back of the board. So we're going to slide this cable right down here. Okay, so we'll see up here, right down here. The other header is right here. So now what I'm going to do is pulling this through, we'll have the middle and then we'll have the end. I'll connect the end, that way I can kind of push the middle as slack just to make it look nicer. That's basically how it's going to look. Now coming around down here, and I think I spotted an issue with all the cables I put out, but that's okay, we'll deal with it now. Now we're going to go ahead and connect all the SATA connections. Now if you remember, I only connected one, and I'm just moving around all the cables to keep everything working together. So the problem is there's a SATA power cable coming down here somewhere. Then there's a SATA power at the very top at this GIM connector. And then there's the SATA SSD right down here. So I'm going to need another SATA power cable. So one sec. So unfortunately, I did need to take the power supply out, like I mentioned before, in order to fit that other cable in. So now we have 2 strands of SATA power. These all come, all these cables and a ton more come with the power supply. So it's definitely beneficial to have a modular power supply. So what we'll do is we'll have one over here for the SSD, and that will include the power connection down here for the front panel and everything that's needed over there. And then this cable, which we're going to go ahead and just kind of set over here, will be for this GIM connector. This powers all the GIM fans, and we'll make it look nice and pretty a little bit later on. But right now, just the base. And then of course, that gives us more options later on for different things to power over here. And then that SATA power connection down here, that's gonna go ahead and power this controller over here, the Corsair controller. It allows all these fans and everything to work right off of here. So now one of the most difficult connections to make look pretty, even especially, I should say, is the PCIe power. Remember, for this particular video card, there's three separate power connections like NVIDIA recommends, one for each. These are not daisy chained. All 3 of these come from the power supply, and let's see exactly how we should put it. So we're just going to pop the video card in just to see. Okay. Now I snapped it in, so it's pretty safe right now. So it's going to come, the cables are going to come either from the grommet right over here, or they're going to come from over here. I would think from the grommet over here to make it look nice and neat, and then come across right over here. Now to keep all the cables looking nice, and again, I'm not going for pretty right now, but I am thinking ahead. We're separating all of the power, PCIe, and everything from everything right over here so that it looks more uniform. Okay, so we have all three cables here. Now I'm going to go over everything and under the ATX 24 pin, and we're going to go keeping everything again nice and neat. One PCIe at the bottom, one PCIe cable at the middle, and then one at the very top. Okay, so now with the same way we did it, the top one is going to be the third connection here. Now mind you, you don't need to do it this way. I'm doing it this way so that it looks nicer. No matter what, you need to connect everything. The particular order I'm doing it, not so much. Okay, and then this one being in the middle will be the middle over here. Now, the way these connect, AMD cards have this little clip at the top. Not all of them, but most of them. And NVIDIA cards have this clip at the bottom. So this little clip right here is going to go on the bottom. Here we can see where that clip is going to latch onto. And then that's also the way that you remove them if you need to. You just push this in, which relieves the clip right over here. And then you're able to just pull it out. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and join the 6 and the 8 pin and connect it. That simple. So now that we have these, we can just arrange this, and we'll do that a little bit later on when we're making everything look nice and pretty. Right now we're just connecting everything, but see, it makes it a lot easier to make look nice. So then coming back around to the back, we have both of the 8 pins CPU power. Just showing you up a little bit closer. It's either a 4 pin or an 8 pin. Now this particular motherboard has 2 8 pins. You don't need both, you just need one. The second is for extra power for the CPU in the case that you're going to overclock it. Since the 8 pins are over here, and this is a bit of a tight fit, I'm going to go ahead and fit them over here. Now there's a chance it may not reach, and that's okay, I'm prepared. Actually, coming over here, the cables are long enough, I just had to pull them a little bit more. So we're gonna go ahead and connect those real quick. Now, because it's such a tight fit, it's hard for me to show you this, but we're going to be connecting those 8 pins right up here. That's basically how it looks. Coming around to the back, we can see how that cable comes across all the way down right over here. So it doesn't look as nice, but still we're going to make it look nice and pretty soon enough. So now that we have the power for the GM up there, we're going to go ahead and worry about the power down here for the SATA drive and for the controller, and we're good there. So just moving it up out of the way to make it look nicer. And then I'm going to connect the end cable of that SATA to the SATA drive itself. So as you can see there, connect that power. Now there's a little L right over here that's going to connect to that L, so just make sure you match them up. Then there's also a notch here on the side that fits right into here. So just slide that in. It's a tight fit, but there we go. First time I've done it, so just loosened it up a little bit. And we're going to need in a minute to disconnect that because of course we need to connect the SATA data cable, and we're not going to need the Molex connection. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just roll them all up, zip tie them, and throw them back in. And I'll show you that in a little bit when I go to make everything look pretty. So now actually is the time that we're going to need to connect the SATA data cable. So I'm just going to go ahead and take that out. Now, same thing with the SATA power we saw. There's that little L piece right over here, then coincide with the L right over here. And we're going to go ahead and just click that in here. Now, this SATA cable, the SATA data cable, comes with the motherboard. And if you're missing them, you don't have them, I'll go ahead and put a link for extra SATA cables down below, as well as extra SATA power connections. So now the SATA is going to be around here. So let's make sure it's actually going to be behind the video card under here. So let's go ahead, take that off real quick. So now we're going to feed it right under the USB 3.0 connection. USB 3.0 comes in right up here. So what we're going to do is just come across this way, and we'll settle all this in a little bit, I promise. And now we have this SATA cable here. Now the SATA ports are right here. So we'll just reach across. I'm gonna put it at the back one. All right, now that's connected. Okay, now we'll go ahead and put that video card again back in. It looks like we have everything connected. So now it's time to make things look nice. So we're going to start off with what Corsair gave us, this little rail system right up here. Now, if you remember, they gave us these straps in the box. So what we can do is get this SATA power for the GIM controller in here. Yeah, that looks great. Now, they are a little tight because they're not supposed to do that, but that's okay. So that doesn't make it as tight as I like it to be. I like it to be incredibly tight. Just makes it look so much nicer, but maybe I could help it out a little tiny bit. That looks better. So now we can see those cables running down through here, just a little bit nicer. And then we have to be careful that we don't pull that cable out. So keep it around the back like that. Unfortunately, too much crossing over here, but that's okay. I'm just worried about keeping everything towards the top looking nice, and then we'll work our way towards the bottom. I'll get rid of this. Just trying to keep everything under control here. Make all the cables look nice. Now the back, I don't typically focus on so much as I do the front. But still, keeping the back nice and neat is pretty important for future updates. Okay, so the way I'm going to put it is the ATX 24 pin is holding on to itself since it is an extension. Okay, and since we do have a deep door, this will keep itself nice and neat. And what I'll do is I'll use one of those thin zip ties through here to keep it just like that. So perfect. And now that thin zip tie. And actually, I just realized the PCIe cables, I never sorted them. So I gotta sort them to make them look nice. Now this is going to block the power connection and the RGB connection right over here, but we're able to move this jumble of cables up and down if we need to. And I'll fix this up in a minute. I'll leave that cable there, if anything, or that zip tie there, just like that, if anything, to remind me that I need to change that. Now, this is the PCIe cables. We want to keep them right here to make everything look nice. So we'll put one of those large zip ties right here. So now, to keep the SATA data cable looking relatively nice or nicer, we'll just keep it just like this, running sideways right to here. And for good measures, we'll put a zip tie under it just to make sure it looks nice. And actually, another thing I noticed is we need to make this jumble of cables and all of these, not forgotten, make them look nice. So we'll grab a few of the thin zip ties and just go ahead, put all those cables through there to make it look nicer. And then it's going to go over where that RGB cable was and going to use that as a base so that the zip tie can go off of. All right, now that doesn't look as bad. And then we'll just clean up the bottom so that it looks like one strand, and we'll get things more in order here. Just remember, we are going to have a rear panel, so that should clear things up. Right now we can see through it, so of course it doesn't look as nice. Now that SATA power connection that connects to the Corsair hub right over here, I need to power that. So now with that SATA cable that we use for the SSD, just going to bring it across nicely. All right, so now that's connected. And now I'm going to just roll up this additional Molex cable and just hide it back here. Now all these extra cables, generally I zip them up a little bit, but not a ton. Right here we're not going to be looking too much, but it already does look great in my opinion. So we have all of the GIM stuff, the lights for the fans, the GIM fans. Then we have the ATX 24 pin extension cable, which looks a little bit odd, but you know, it actually works out pretty well. Then we have that big spine of cables right over here. It drops off right over here, and mind you, I'll probably put another zip tie here in a sec. Then the other GIM part comes right over here, which also comes to the 8 to 8 pin connections right down here, which also comes down. Some are going to go behind and under the SSD. Some are going to go over. Unfortunately, those two CPU powers, I had no way around that. I couldn't go straight up and that way. And so the best way to go was that way. And that way it keeps it in the little rail system they have built in. So I think this looks great back here. On the front, let's go ahead and clean up over here. First off, I am cutting that zip tie that I left back there. Now we have this cable that I completely forgot about, power for the pump. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap it in itself so that it still comes right up, but then it kind of shortens itself right over here. And we're going to use these thin zip ties for that. Okay, so I'm bringing this cable up from here. I'm stopping it right around here. And then I'm bringing the cable from the top right down here. So we're going to have some access, but that access is going to go over the cable. And unfortunately, there is no good way to show you this. Now I'm going to go ahead and zip tie this loop onto the cable coming down here. While it's not perfect, it's better than it was before. Now we need to clean up these cables up here. Now you'll notice I didn't tie them up directly at the bottom. I gave it about an inch of slack. That way, as I'm tightening it, I don't pull any of the cables out of the connection. And then at the very top, I apologize, it's difficult for a lot of angles. And then here is where those two cables are going to come out of. So that looks good. I've gone ahead and put the zip tie down here, keeping it nice and tight. Now, we do have a few problems. First off, this main door I cannot shut. Unfortunately, there's too much here, but there's not a lot we can do. So we can always make the cable go this way, take it out of here, but this isn't the only door. We do have the main door. The main door keeps everything nice and tight. You can see that. Now, while this does look great, I think it looks amazing. Just to see how it works, first time powering it on. All of this is just right after the video and after putting the rear side panel on. Let's see what she does. Front fans, side fans are working, so all that's connected. The fans up here on the liquid cooling unit are running. That's running. And we have an error, the first error booting up the machine, so that's perfect. We can see the video card, the memory. As I mentioned, we can see the rear fan, top fans, front fans. So you can hear them. And the side fans all working. This cable is working as well, the extension cable, and obviously we're getting power to everything. So the ATX 24 pin is feeding the motherboard with power. The memory has RGB that works. The video card has its own RGB. We can see everything's functioning perfect. And as you saw on the screen, we are perfectly connected. All right, so we can see the Sinatra. She's working beautifully. And well, we need to flash the BIOS, we need to install Windows, configure the BIOS and all that good stuff. And that's coming up on my next video. But on this video, I've shown you how to connect all of the cables, how to make it look nice and pretty, and how to make everything work. Again, in my next video, we're going to be configuring and flashing the BIOS, then installing Windows, just showing you from the ground up how to get working on your brand new computer. If you have any questions, as I always ask, go ahead and leave them down in the comments below. I answer each and every one of your comments. I love to help you guys. And as always, please do click like and subscribe. It helps me out a ton. That way I can keep bringing you bigger and better reviews, how-to videos, and all sorts of different guides. And as always, if you'd like, go ahead and buy me a cup of coffee. That'll help support the channel as well. And that's about it, guys. Iggy with ThisBytesForYou out. See you guys.